Yeah, so you mentioned that you were a programmer. I did some of that before as well. I worked a lot with CSS, PHP, and C++. And then I quit because I found that, with the applications, WordPress and all that stuff that developed, I felt like I'm wasting my time building applications rather than focusing on building businesses and marketing, which is the reason why I got into programming in the first place. What made you make that transition from being a programmer to whatever you're doing today?
Okay, so first I was in art school. I went to art school, which is the opposite of marketing. However, the way you get graded in art school is like you do a group critique and you show up with your painting that you did to fulfill the assignment, and then you get to explain to everyone what you did and what your plan was. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was learning the art of bullshitting, which is basically like, due to the artificial constraints of this parochial environment, I was not able to fulfill my true vision. But let me tell it to you now. And then by the end of art school, I think I can get away with this. They won't come and take my diploma or anything. But I was turning in paintings from like previous classes untouched and just giving a different story about why it fit the assignment. Um,
Repurposing, smart.
yeah, yeah. It made some people mad, but they never tattled on me. So kudos to them for not snitching. Um, so while I was doing that, um, as a campus job, I just told the story yesterday. I was reminded of it. As a campus job, I did the classified section of the school newspaper, and a local company was trying to hire a web designer, and I didn't run the ad, and I replied to it. So I was the only person who applied for the job because I didn't show it to anybody else. Um, but they were looking for like web design for client sites. They were kind of like an agency, I guess you would call it today. So that was my transition from art to graphic design. And then while I was on that job is when I learned you called it programming. I don't know that I would call it that. It was like no logic, just straight HTML style sheets, but like I didn't get the computer to do anything but show you with the web page. Um, so I did that for a while. That carried through my career until I was doing web design at a marketing company, and the copywriter got sick. And I volunteered to help out. And my boss at the time, Andy Jenkins, rest in peace, he said, "Do you like doing this?" And I said, "Well, Andy, it's better than illegally wiring your rental house, so we can work from it as a startup." And he said, "Great. So you're hired. You're the chief marketing copywriter now. So get good at it." And then that company had, I guess you would call it a business divorce, where like the two guys who co-owned it did not like each other anymore and split apart. And in that, I left also, and that's the start of my freelance copywriting career. And at that point, to circle all the way back to your question, when did you decide to like move past doing that stuff? I knew when I left there, I would give myself some time. I talked it over with my wife to see, like, the revelation I had is like for these two guys, I'm writing drafts, at least drafts of all of their copy, and they're selling millions of dollars worth of stuff. The only thing they have that I don't have is people know who they are. I'm doing the writing, I'm putting the buy button on it. So let me set about manufacturing that for myself, and I'll give myself like 5 years or whatever. It's been 15 now. And that's what I set out to do, is like leverage copywriting as a way to turn myself into an influential seller where people buy based on my recommendation and not because I wrote a 20-page sales letter or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love this. It's a great illustration of how casual and go. It feels like you go with the flow, right? Like, did you know even that you were going to be any type of entrepreneur? I don't even know if you call
No,
yourself an entrepreneur
no,
actually, because I think
no.
I heard you say something.
Yeah, I consider myself as self-employed,
Hmm.
and I've waffled with it over the years, but I consider basically what I live as like the life of an artist. So I work on the things that I want to work on. I have patrons who pay me to create those things by request or recommendation. I mostly make a lot of things that are the things that I feel like I want to make, and they are in the vein of things I've been interested in my whole life. So like trickery and persuasion and psychology and even the artistic aspects of advertising are all things that I liked before I ever got into marketing. So I'm very fortunate that making that stuff at will is how I make my living.
So when you made that transition by accident or whatever you want to call it to going on your own, how was it in the beginning? Was it tough, easy, or did you have any like, just walk us through your feeling.
I was super fortunate and privileged at the beginning of my freelancing career because I mentioned my boss, Andy Jenkins, who, when he left that company we were at together, it was called StomperNet, he had to do his own thing as well. And I was already his copywriter. Like I was already writing things in his voice because he had been the voice of the publications in the previous company. So he hired me right away to do his next launch that he had to do because he didn't have a job anymore. Neither did I. So we worked together on that. I think it was, I can't remember if he did Video Boss or Kajabi first, but he helped launch the first version of Kajabi at the time, and I helped with writing both of those. But he not only hired me, but referred me out as like the open secret. Now this guy is available. He was the writer for StomperNet. And he, without asking me, told people how much I charged, which was way more than what I would have asked for myself. So that was the kind of guy he was. He's a controversial figure. People got opinions about him. I can't say a bad word because he was so generous to me for no real reason that he had to. So to that end, I was very privileged to get those referrals. And again, my game was, I'm not doing this to have a long copywriting career. I am doing this to very quickly build up a reputation for myself. So like name recognition. And to that end, I took on projects that I knew I could brag about and people would recognize in the space. And the way I met Alice was through speaking at marketing events. And that's how I got into speaking at marketing events, is because I wasn't just a random copywriter. I was the guy who wrote this launch and that launch, and other speakers were my clients. So through the luck of copywriters normally being shy and me being positioned on purpose to weasel my way onto stage, that kind of blew up the early part of my career. And really my freelancing career was from, I quit StomperNet like August of 2009, and I quote unquote retired from writing copy for clients to run the Cult of Copy full time in September 2012. So from 2009 to 2012 is the only time period where I was taking on clients.